It's simple things like crossing the street without the cars wanting to go through you because they respect the pedestrian crossing.
Meet Charles, a Brazilian scientist and father of three living in Mallorca, Spain. He shares why and how he first moved to Switzerland and then to Spain, the crazy story of not getting his social security number when he asked, and why he learned to be low profile when they moved abroad. My name is Nick Ang, your guide to expat life in Europe. Let's go.
My name is Charles. I come from Brazil originally, but currently I live in Mallorca in Spain. My background is in computer science, and I have worked as a scientist in the academic sector, but now I work as a data scientist in the industry. And at the same time, I'm trying to also build a startup.
We were introduced by someone on LinkedIn. You sent me a message and told me a little bit about yourself. And the thing that stood out most for me is that you have traveled a lot. You've lived in multiple places. Could you tell us, where have you lived long term before?
I lived in Brazil, where I was born. And when I was 26, I moved to Spain to do a PhD. So I lived in Spain for 5 years. When I finished my PhD, I moved to Switzerland to work as a postdoctoral researcher. We have very short contracts, like 1 year, 2 years. So eventually, if you don't get a new short-term contract, you get unemployed, basically. So it happened to me, and I had to go back to Brazil. And I say I had to go back because it was not a choice. And I lived there for 1 year until we decided to come back to Europe. We as a family went back to Switzerland in the year 2018. And in the year 2019, we came back to Spain. And since then, we are here. So far in Spain, we hope it will be our place for a long time, but we never know.
How was it? So when you were 26, were you already with your current wife?
We were together as a couple, but not married. We didn't even live together by that time. But I was working as a researcher in an oceanographic center in Brazil and looking for opportunities to do a PhD. And one of my areas of interest is complex systems, an area in physics where you study, for example, fractal geometry, chaos theory, complex networks. And one of the most important research centers in complex systems in the world is in Mallorca, Spain. 4 years, I applied for a PhD position here in Mallorca, and eventually I got it in 2009. Then when it happened, we discussed it, right? Me and my girlfriend by that time, and we decided that I would come to see how it is, right? How it was to live in Mallorca. I like it, and then I came back to Brazil. We got married, and then she came back with me. When we were here, she looked for a PhD also because she liked research, but in a different area, neuroscience. She eventually got a PhD, and we lived here for 5 years that we enjoyed a lot. We got married in order to her to get a visa because as a girlfriend, she wouldn't get a visa, but as a wife, she gets, right? Being together is different from getting married. So getting married makes life easier because the bureaucracy treats you different. So it was the motivation of getting married, right? Not the motivation of being together.
Yes. Can you try to, in 3 words or so, describe yourself?
I like to describe myself as a father, a scientist, and a founder.
One question I like to ask people is whether if they tried to psychoanalyze themselves, they would be able to find something that they were chasing or trying to leave behind.
Brazil is a beautiful country, but it's a country full of problems. So I was always curious about living in a place with less problems, with more security, with more nature close to you. So basically, I was curious about how it is to live in a place that is better than Brazil. I always liked some European movies or even music like Beatles. Every time I listened to Beatles, I wondered what it would be if I was there. Like I imagined myself in that place they were singing. So I had this curiosity of living in another place. Also, I knew people that lived abroad, some professors at the university, some colleagues of mine, and I admired their stories. And when we go back to Brazil, when we go back home, we go back to see our people, right? We are happy because we are with friends that we spent a lot of time before, we are with family, but we also have this feeling of, wow, it's so difficult to live there, even to walk in the streets. It makes us grateful for having the opportunity of living in a better place.
What are some of the emotions you feel? You say it's difficult to walk down the street when you're back home. What's difficult about that?
My feeling is there are so many good people there and so many people that we love. And we wanted them to have the same opportunities and the same feelings that we have here. It's simple things like crossing the street without the cars wanting to go through you because they respect the pedestrian crossing. I see the mother of my wife, she lives there, and I see so difficult for her to cross a street, right? And you are in the street and you don't have any tree to walk under the shadow. So I wanted them to have the same opportunity of having a good life in this terms, of minimum quality of life. And of course, to be safe, to go to the street in the night and be confident that they will get back home. So these simple things is what makes us feel like, wow, it's hard to be back there and see that our dearest people have to deal with those problems because they don't have the opportunity to live. Right? My mother is here living with us now. I feel so good, so well, because I know that she's here, that she has this opportunity.
Was it difficult to convince your mom to come?
Yeah, and it was in the beginning, I would say 15 years ago, she wouldn't leave. After some years, and my brother also came to Europe, and they took kids abroad. She's not married now. So it was easy. Like I see her happy here. We have kids, so she has grandsons and granddaughters, right? So she has a good life here. She misses her friends, of course. She is all the day in WhatsApp and Telegram speaking with people, but she's happy. She says it like, I can walk, I feel safe. That's a lot for her.
Congratulations on making that happen.
Thank you. We are also happy.
Can you teach me a little bit about the languages that you speak? I know Portuguese is one of them, right? Spain doesn't speak Portuguese. So like, how is your mom assimilating and how are you assimilating to society in Spain?
In Brazil, the official language is Portuguese, and there are some indigenous languages that they speak in some regions, but not in the region we live in. So we speak Portuguese. And here we live in Mallorca, where the official language is Catalan, you can say. They call Mallorquin, but for us, it's Catalan. And so they speak Catalan and Spanish. So we deal with both languages in our daily basis. We speak Spanish fluently, we as a family. Every day we speak Portuguese at home, Spanish in the streets, and eventually we have to deal with people speaking in Catalan, particularly in the administration or elderly people that are more used to Catalan, etc. For my mother, she understands Spanish and she responds in Portuguese, and people understand her. So both languages are very similar to each other. So when people don't understand her, she goes to Google, she puts the picture of what she wants, and she lives and she buys things, and it's really cool. She's great. She doesn't care. She's not embarrassed. At home, we have 3 kids, and 2 of them are at school, and they are in an international school. So for them, they speak English at school and with friends. Most of the friends come from abroad. My daughter has 22 colleagues in her class, and they come from 17 different countries.
Wow.
17 different countries. So they speak in English among themselves.
And was that very deliberate on your and your wife's part to enroll them in an international school?
We believe that the best option for her is a British school to speak in English. So the idea was to come and spend 1 year at this school because of language. And she has been there for 7 years now. More than the language, we like the environment, we like a different aspect of the school, right? But the main reason was what can make her life easier when we came to a new country. Everything will be new, right? Even the friends. We were also afraid of this because she had friends in Switzerland. And you probably know that what we miss from the places we live is people, right? We thought about this and then we decided, okay, let's make her life easier and go to international school.
As a dad myself, it helps to hear another dad talk about how they went about deciding the fate. There's so much responsibility sometimes, I think, in the hands of the parents. And we want to try to make good decisions.
Our kids' friends are at school. So it's difficult to decide, even if the school is not good, you are not satisfied with the teachers or whatever. To decide to leave a school means that your daughter will be away from their most loved people, let's say, aside of their parents, right? Yeah, so it's difficult. Whenever we discuss about changing the school, our daughter says, what about my friends? It's not about the teachers or the school she loves. What about my friend? And the opposite as well. When a friend leaves the school, there's always a crisis.
Do you have any advice for people who have families who are considering moving for the first time?
I cannot say it's a recommendation, but I can say things that made our lives easier. For example, when we moved to Spain, we first lived in Palma. that is the biggest city in Mallorca, 500,000 people, and we were in a building, so a lot of people. The kids had no friends in the building or in the surround. Then we moved to a small city with 2,000 people. And then life happens in the main square of the city. And then you get to know people. So you have friends. Something that I think helps is to live in small places, at least in the beginning, because you get to know people easier. And for your kids, they make friends easier, right? And if you don't live in a small place, at least try to be in places where you can find kids. The playground is the best place to get to know friends and to leave people behind. I don't have a secret. I don't have any. It's difficult. We live with the promise of coming back in the future. Like we live and we say, don't worry, we will be back in 1 year. We will spend holidays. They come to visit us.
I think that's really good advice. It applies especially to parents who have children who are old enough to be making the decision to move together. If they're super young, you have the opportunity to sort of rip them apart from their social setting without them feeling like they're going to miss a lot.
You don't realize yet.
They don't realize yet. So maybe that's also another thing, right? If your kids are very young now, this is a very good time to move. It gets harder when they're older, right? And on your point about going to a smaller place, I agree that could work, but I also get a little bit concerned for myself. For example, I came from Singapore and I moved to Germany. If I moved to a little village somewhere in Germany, I would feel super out of place because I don't speak the language and I can't connect with people enough. The locals there for sure would be locals. So it would take a bit of assimilation. But if you speak a language that is close enough, like Portuguese versus Spanish, maybe that helps.
Speak a language makes such a big difference. We live in Switzerland and we couldn't interact with the locals. It's true.
Do you see differences in your kids?
Yes. I see a difference between my old daughter that's 12 years old and came to Spain at the age of 6 and the other daughter that's 6 years old and came to Spain at the age of 10 months. The old one doesn't know all the games the kids play and sometimes even her behavior is not the same. But the one in the middle knows every game. Even the way she speaks is different. I see she's more integrated even at the age of 6 among the kids.
That's honestly quite fascinating. And is it weird to you sometimes when your kids come home and you're at your dining table and like your kids at various stages of being quite Spanish and you almost can't recognize any of you in them sometimes?
Yes. So true. Sometimes it's annoying. I say, no. I mean, they way of speaking, even if they speak Portuguese, but sometimes they speak Portuguese words, but speaking in an English way because they now study in a British school, right?
Yes.
And I say, what are you saying? I can't understand it. Until I realize it's an English sentence with Portuguese words.
How would you describe the people in Spain?
Joy, like it's not happiness, it's joy. Intensity in everything, in what is good and what is not good, and pride. In Spain, there are many cultures in the same country. I see their pride of some aspects of being Spanish. And it's something similar to what I saw in Switzerland. In Switzerland, there is the French part, the German part, the Italian part, but they are proud of being Swiss. Sometimes they say, Spain is different. It's a joke sometimes. The time they have lunch, right? Typically at 2 p.m. So they say Spain is different. Or the siesta is not something that they actually do. It's more something from old-fashioned Spain. But still they say, no, Spain, there is siesta because Spain is different. We are in Brazil. We have these for a few things, like the joy as well. We are proud of football and we are proud of the beaches, the nature, right? Around in us. Many other aspects we are not.
If an old friend that knew you way back before you first moved saw you now, what do you think they would say is different about you?
They will ask, where is your hair? Because I used to have long hair. I think they would expect to see something that I don't show now. I used it to be more intense in some types of discussions about politics, for example, or even about football. Then I switched a bit to politics. Who is right? Who is wrong? Who is my friend? Who is not? And every time I had some strong opinions for everything, right? And now I think the only thing that I have strong opinion is about my kids. It's the only thing that makes me get somehow out of my mind.
How much of this development would you attribute to the fact that you actually lived abroad? And how much of it is actually just growing up and being older?
Good point. I think a lot, particularly because I lived in countries different cultures, right? Switzerland, for example. Follow the rules, right? I listened to many times. Just follow the rules, man. For small aspects of life, even of work. And then I basically started to not necessarily follow the rules, but to simplify things, especially as a foreigner. I was always afraid of being rejected or having some prejudice that comes hidden in some decisions or something people say. I tried to be invisible and do my stuff the best I can without highlighting. And yeah, I think it comes from this aspect, particularly coming from Brazil. That is an extra, I think. It's not a French person coming to Spain. It's a Brazilian person coming to Spain. Right? So we know that there are some prejudices in the sense of some judgment you do. Imagine that some person has some characteristics. So to avoid this kind of bias, I started to modulate my behavior. One thing that I changed because of Switzerland is that I am now very on time. I'm always on time, everywhere. Even in here in Spain, we used to say that it's not good to be on time because people are never on time. So why are you here? Just to let me know that I'm late, right? Sometimes in Brazil, the same. It's something that I brought from Switzerland because in the beginning I was not on time and people was looking at me. And some people even said something and I said, okay, let's be on time and avoid criticism. So maybe it's something that comes from the places I live in.
Is there a way for people to avoid having to tone themselves down so that they are a bit more low profile when they land in a new place? Do you think it's a rite of passage? It's absolutely necessary before you become more local and then you can be yourself again?
I would not say it's necessary. It was my strategy, right? But there are people that don't do this and also succeed, right? So there are different people that have different reactions to this situation. I didn't think this a priori. It was my natural reaction. I will tell you one situation that was really in the very beginning of my life in Spain. I was a PhD student and I needed a social security number to sign my contract. I went to the social security office and I asked for the social security number. Then they said, no, to get the social security number, you need a contract. And I talked to a different woman and she said, yes, I will give you the social security number. And then the other lady said, I told you can't get it. And then the other lady didn't give me the social security number. I left the office. So this is one example of I didn't know the rule. Maybe if I knew the rules, I would just say to the first lady, I'm sorry, I know I'm allowed to have this now. It was not like this, but I had to escape from that person. Maybe she had a prejudice. Fortunately, I got the social security number and signed the contract and did my PhD.
Oh man, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That was...
But it's funny to tell the story now because it depends on people.
If you had a choice, would you choose to live in Switzerland rather than Spain?
The answer is no, for sure. When my daughter started at school at the age of 5, I was working and we started to see the same patterns at work and at school in the sense of rules, a lot of rules. That made us decide to move. The difference between Brazil and Spain in many aspects of life, it's very similar to the difference between Spain and Switzerland. Spain is more developed, has more opportunities, has more quality of life than Brazil. And Switzerland, I would say, is more developed, has more opportunity, and has better quality of life than Spain. But also in the lifestyle, I would say there is this difference. So Spain is in between Brazil and Switzerland. Switzerland is much more strict than in our culture, Brazil. And Spain is in between. It has a lot of joy. It has a lot of informality, as I said. So that's why I would not go back to Switzerland. I think because for Brazilian, for me and my wife, we realized that it was more difficult to feel comfortable. Yeah. And in Spain, we feel comfortable. We have Spanish friends. We have local friends. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference. Big difference.
You're basically highlighting the fact that we should not be making these decisions of where to move purely based on this idea of, let's say, standard of living. It sounds like if we go down that path, it almost sounds logical to just go to Switzerland because more opportunities, make more money, and so on. However, you come across this culture wall, almost like this obstacle that just makes you uncomfortable. And I've heard this many times from different people, especially people from Spain, Brazil, the Mediterranean cultures, they're like Germany and Switzerland, they're a bit too buttoned up, and I just feel this lack of warmth from people, and therefore my life never really flourishes in these places.
The only thing I would add is that it's not something that I decided before.
Yes.
It's just because I live there. So based on our experiences, we say, yeah, it's too much for us.
It's like a radar, can only pick up signals when you're close enough. If you're not close enough to the ground, now you're working in your own thing. Can you tell us more about that?
I'm creating a startup that is inspired by a problem my brother had. He loves the books of Gabriel Garcia Marquez that are set in Colombia. And then he wanted to visit Colombia, to visit the places where the stories are set, the places where his favorite characters live. So my brother had to prepare the itinerary, the places he would like to visit, etc. Then he could actually travel. And when he was back, he said, it was the best travel of my life. But preparing it, oh my God, it was a nightmare. And then I got this message in my mind that said, yes, it should be easier, right? So I decided to invest some time in creating a platform that creates travel itineraries inspired by books, movies, and TV shows. So I have this platform. It's called Cultrip.com, KULTREIP, so Cultrip.com. If you create a user, you get credits for 2 travel guides. So if you're going to travel, you can go there and try it.
Okay. Charles, thanks once again for taking the time to join us on this podcast and sharing your story.
Thank you.